Have you ever actually stopped to think about why, as kids, we so willingly play a game that perfectly mimics the primal terror of being hunted as prey? I mean, really think about it. We plunge ourselves into total darkness, we hold our breath, and we just wait in absolute isolation while someone, or, something, actively hunts us down. Well, welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to be looking at the deep psychology of fear through the lens of this childhood classic. And I'll be doing that by digging into 3 highly documented, honestly chilling accounts where this supposedly innocent game invited something very real and very sinister into the dark.
Okay, so let's dive right into this. To really understand why this game taps so heavily into our deepest survival instincts, we have to look at what happens when the simulation of being hunted actually becomes reality. We're going to use a case study framework today, examining 3 totally distinct environments: a contained house, an open forest, and a sprawling private property. In every single one of these source accounts, the players slowly realized that the boundaries of their game had been completely breached by an uninvited player.
Case 1. The guest room. The violation of a safe space.
So picture this. It's a quiet Friday night in September. A 15-year-old boy is home alone, and he invites his best friend Chris over to play some hide-and-seek. To keep the game contained, they establish some basic, actually really strict rules. No going outside, no going into the attic, no going into the crawl space, and absolutely no lights. The logic was simple, right? Keep it manageable, keep it safe. But ironically, by setting up these exact boundaries, the boys had unknowingly trapped themselves inside a pitch-black house with literally 0 escape routes if something went wrong.
During the second round, the narrator is hiding under the guest room bed. He's pulled the bed skirt all the way down to completely conceal himself. He's just laying there in the dark, heart absolutely pounding. Then he hears slow, heavy shoes shuffling upstairs, just creeping from room to room. And then he hears this exact quote: "I heard him breathing as he walked into the guest room." Then silence. The shoes shuffle right up to the edge of the bed. He just assumes it's Chris. But after this long, agonizing silence, the footsteps just turn around and leave the room.
So, after waiting a few more minutes, the narrator finally crawls out and heads downstairs to declare victory. But here is where his expectation completely shatters against reality. He fully expected Chris to be the one searching the guest room. The reality? When he gets downstairs, Chris yells up from the basement. He had been hiding down there the entire round. So the horrifying realization hits them both at the exact same time. If Chris was in the basement, whose heavy breathing did the narrator just listen to in that pitch-black bedroom? Suddenly, the boys hear a loud, heavy thud come from upstairs. They are terrified, obviously, but needing to know if there's an actual intruder in the house, they grab a fireplace poker and quietly creep back up the stairs. The house is dead silent. That is, until they stand right outside the closed guest room door, and from the other side they hear this: a slow, dragging noise like fabric sliding across the carpet. Someone or something was waiting inside that room.
With literally shaking hands, they throw the door wide open. But the room is completely empty. The closet door is standing half open, revealing nothing but coats. They let out this shaky little laugh, trying to convince themselves it's just, the old house settling. But then, it happens. Downstairs, clear as day, the front door opens and closes. The boys absolutely freeze in the dark hallway. Heavy footsteps start walking across the first floor. They are trapped upstairs with nothing but a fireplace poker. They listen in just sheer panic as the footsteps move toward the basement door, pull it open, and begin descending the stairs. Seizing their only possible window of opportunity, the boys sprint down the main stairs, blast out the back door, and do not stop running until they reach a neighbor's house to call the cops. The police ended up searching the home top to bottom, but they found absolutely no one.
Case 2. The dark woods. The terror of isolation. Now we move from a totally contained indoor space to a sprawling, humid August forest where 5 teenagers are playing a massive game across several backyards and the dense tree line. The parameters here are strict. Hide in the yards or the woods, stay close enough to hear the seeker, and crucially, if you make a sound, you lose. These specific rules literally force the kids to stay entirely silent, completely motionless, and deeply hidden in an environment where the dense summer leaves swallowed up all the moonlight. They were actively making themselves as vulnerable and isolated as humanly possible.
One of the hiders is crouching behind a fallen log out in the pitch black. He hears heavy footsteps crunching through the leaves, moving directly toward his spot. He holds his breath, fully expecting it to be the seeker, a kid named Jason. The footsteps stop just feet away.
He stays totally frozen, right? He doesn't want to lose the game. Eventually, the footsteps just walk away deeper into the woods. But look at the reality here. When the round finally ends, he finds out Jason never even went that far into the woods. He'd only been circling the edge of the lawns.
The game keeps going, and the narrator is back hiding in the tall grass near the tree line. That is when the dead silence of the woods is broken by something far worse than footsteps. He hears a whisper. As the source notes, a low voice, too soft to make out the words, but it was close. This was definitely not an animal. This was immediately followed by slow, heavy, two-legged footsteps moving past him in the grass. He was completely hidden, sure, but he absolutely wasn't alone.
When the game finally wraps up, and the kids are all regrouping, another boy named Matt nervously speaks up, and he confirms the horror. Matt admits that while he was hiding, he saw a tall, unfamiliar man standing completely still out in the dark woods. The man wasn't moving, he wasn't walking around, he was simply standing there in the blackness, silently watching these teenagers play their game.
Case 3. The uninvited player. The direct threat.
Over in rural Pennsylvania, a group of friends are playing basketball when the 16-year-old stranger, who introduces himself as Keith, just wanders out of the woods. Keith specifically suggests they play manhunt, which is basically a much more intense version of hide and seek. He tells the kids, "My yard was perfect for it since there were so many spots to hide." Now, I want you to really pause and think about that for a second. This is a massive, rural, private property. Keith claims he was just out walking past on the dirt road, so how on earth did this complete stranger already know the exact layout, the structures, and all the intimate hiding spots of a property he supposedly had never even set foot on?
Well, the threat escalates incredibly fast. In the afternoon, Keith insists on being the seeker, but then he just completely vanishes. He walks right off the property without saying a single word. By sunset, the narrator finds a strange, weathered piece of rope just sitting on the grass directly outside his bedroom window. By 11 p.m., the horror actually moves inside the house, and by 2 a.m., the whole situation reaches a totally terrifying climax. Let's look a little closer at those nighttime events.
At 11 p.m., the 14-year-old narrator is lying in bed when he hears soft, stealthy footsteps out in the hallway, and they stop exactly outside his bedroom door. He calls out for his dad, but gets absolutely no answer. After 30 agonizing seconds of pure silence, he hears the front door of the house shut. He immediately wakes his father, who grabs a shotgun and a flashlight, and they desperately search the entire house and the acres outside, but they find no one. They lock every single door and window tight. But, you guessed it, the intruder was not finished. At 2 a.m., the boy is jolted awake. He looks over at his bedroom window. And there it is. The scratching was slow, like someone dragging a stick or nail against the glass. He very carefully peels back just a tiny sliver of the blinds. Standing mere inches from the glass, in the pitch black, is the dark silhouette of a figure. The boy just screams. His father charges outside and fires 2 warning shots from the shotgun straight into the night sky, finally driving the uninvited player away into the dark.
When the game ends, the ultimate takeaway. So what do these 3 deeply unsettling cases actually teach us about human vulnerability? We've looked at the guest room, the dark woods, and that huge rural property. The core realization here is actually pretty profound. When we play games like hide and seek, we willingly strip away our own awareness. We cover our eyes, we isolate ourselves, and we mask our own presence. But the ultimate horror isn't the dark itself. It's the terrifying discovery of a predator who is using your own self-imposed blindness right against you. It's that awful moment you realize that in the shadows you chose for yourself, you aren't the only one hiding. And worse, they are not playing by your rules.
It leaves us with a lingering, super unsettling thought that bridges this explainer straight into reality. You set the boundaries, you turned out the lights, you thought it was just a game. But I have to leave you with this. What do you do when the footsteps you hear aren't your friends?